Hey, hockey fans, we have a special Squadcast episode of Locked On Kraken and Locked On Canucks for you, Erica L. Ayala and Justin Pooney. We are going to we're going to preview the game tonight between the Seattle Kraken and the Canucks. We'll recap how our teams have been doing and what we think is going to happen tonight. I honestly think, Justin, it's a coin toss.
That's what it's come to with the Canucks, just a coin toss.
Well, we'll see who comes out victorious after tonight. Thursday night's game. We've got you here on Locked On Kraken and Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks again, hockey fans, for making us your first listen of the day, whether you're tuning in to Locked On Canucks or Locked On Kraken. Again, my name is Erica L. Ayala. I am joined by Justin Pooney, who is the host of Locked On Canucks. And since our teams are squaring up tonight at Climate Pledge Arena, it is a division game. We figured we would squadcast it up and get you ready for the game. Now, it's been a tough road. It's been a tough road for the Kraken, but with Vancouver coming in, honestly, we are just hoping we don't crap the bed again. But it's been a tough go for Vancouver so far. I was, before we got on the Squadcast, Justin, listening to some of your 5 things to know about the team, and there were some pretty big expectations about leadership and also the rookies. But as of yet, that hasn't quite transpired. From the Canucks perspective, what do we need to know about Vancouver going into tonight's game?
This season's been a big disappointment. This season has the last couple of weeks have been very tough, and I ended my episode yesterday talking about that because before this season started, and I think we talked about it when we did our first crossover episode back in the off season. There was a lot of, I was very high on this team that something good was going to happen. JT Miller was signed. They got in a bunch of new players. The top 9 forwards look stacked. Thatcher, Demko, I thought would take another step. The defense core was still an issue, but I thought they'd be all right. Nothing has gone right. Nothing has gone right. And after they started off so well in Edmonton that first period, and they had, they built up a 3-goal lead, and then ever since then, it's just been kind of downhill. The lack of ability to have a lead. Players, their top guys are not playing well. Let's face it. Aside from Elias Pettersson and Bo Horvat, who have been playing, well, JT Miller, who just signed a brand new contract, has not looked good at all. Brock Besser, of course, is still hurt. Ilya Mikheyev's working his way back from injury, and Thatcher Demko just hasn't been looking good. So I think with this team, yes, err on the side of patience, but also it's kind of hard you're starting to run out of patience. And I made it very clear that after tonight's game in Seattle, they have 4 games at home straight before they go back out east. This team needs to have at least 4 wins. They need to be hovering around 500 before they go back out east. Otherwise, I'm telling you, there's going to need to be changes made. Because it's been tough to watch. It's been tough to act as a fan, and people are getting upset. You saw the jerseys thrown on the ice on Saturday. For me personally, I would never throw a jersey on the ice because $300 is a lot of money.
I know that's right.
And in today's economy, I can't just be throwing $300 on the ice just to send a message. So, but the market is very hot right now. Everybody's on pins and needles. Everybody's very much like, okay, well, what do we do? Do we strip it all down? Do we tear it down? Do we rebuild? I've never been a proponent of rebuilding because your best players right now are in the prime of their career. So if you're going to trade Pettersson, Demko, and Hughes and start all over again, by all means do it, right? But these guys want to win. These guys want to play to win. They don't want to go through another rebuild. So patience, but patience is running thin.
Yeah, it's brutal to kind of see it from this perspective. That being said, I mean honestly, with the way the Seattle Kraken have been playing, although I've been aware and conscious of what's been happening to Vancouver, there've been a lot of things that we have had to focus on as well.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying regarding changes that need to be made. It sounds like, you're kind of still trying to figure out what are the right buttons to push. I know, and we'll talk about this coming up in the next segment, but a big conversation for us has also been not just leadership from the players on the ice, but also from the bench. What is your sense of how the Canucks are doing as far as their bench bosses? And is there any indication that there's fatigue that's coming from what's being executed from the bench to the ice?
Well, it's definitely something that's been said for management that this team needs to play with structure. General manager Patrick Alvin said it yesterday. Jim Rutherford has said it that this team needs to play with structure, and that results on the coach Bruce Boudreau, who is well known to not have a very tight structured team. They like to free run, play kind of run and gun. And I get it. You can play that if you have guys like Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, whatever. But even
Right.
those teams have structure, right? And you look at just the landscape of sports. Any great team that wins titles, that is a great team. They play with structure. The Golden State Warriors in basketball have a great structure and system. They had New England Patriots had it for years. Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Kobe and Shaq. You have to play with structure, even in hockey. Colorado Avalanche had one of the best forechecks I've ever seen. Team speed. The Lightning, the Penguins before, the Blackhawks, they all have structure, and
Right.
everybody has to buy in it. Your top players have to buy into it, and the Canucks top players haven't bought into it. Too many giveaways on the blue lines, too many giveaways in the offensive zone. Just not being able to, you can't even kill a penalty. Their penalty kill has been horrible, horrible. So when I look at this team, you need your big guys to buy into what your coach is doing, what your coach is selling, and play that way. Because then that sets down for the rest of the roster. And until that happens, this team's going to keep on spinning its tires. Yeah, they'll win some games, but they're not going to be doing anything significant, right? So
Wow.
I think there's time to turn it around. It's still October. It's not even November yet, right? So there's still time to turn this around, but these guys need to pull up their socks and start doing it, right? Because it's
Yeah.
running thin.
Yeah, for sure. And just for those watching on YouTube, we'll pull up this graphic here. This is just some stats going into today's game. The overall record you see here: 0-5-2 for Vancouver. The Seattle Kraken are 3-3-2. So 8 points for Seattle coming in, 2 points for Vancouver. And then you talked about the power play, penalty kill. The power play 16% for Vancouver. Seattle sitting at 29% coming into this game. Penalty kill, we're both are above 50%, 57% for Vancouver on the kill, 69% on the penalty kill for the Seattle Kraken. We're going to talk about the Seattle Kraken coming up on this Squadcast episode. But Justin, before we do that, let's talk about some players. Who are some key players to watch? But also, I think I've read that Hughes, of course, we know of the Hughes family by way of Maddie Beniers in our part of the water. But what's the update with Quinn Hughes, do you think?
Quinn Hughes is out with an injury. He's going to be out a couple weeks, from what all reports are indicating. So again, he's the only notable piece on the Vancouver Blue Line who's just been decimated with injuries. Not only Quinn Hughes, but Travis Dermott. Then you also have Tucker Pullman's been out, Riley Stillman. So a lot of the defense has just been decimated with injuries, right? And this defense core was not very deep to begin with. And now when you're adding more injuries to that, it just makes it harder to win. And it's putting Thatcher Demko in a position where he has to stand on his head every night, and he hasn't done that, right? And when he can't do that, you're going to be losing games. And what are they doing right now? Losing games. So I think this is the mess the Canucks made. They didn't address the defense core, and it came back and bit them in the what, right? And I think once they get their defense core healthy, things might turn around, but they got to tread water, and they got to somehow figure out a way to win games and do something, because this is the mess they made, and this is what they got to deal with, right? So
Yeah, that's tough. And what's also tough, I'm sure, for Seattle Kraken fans listening is that some of what you're saying sounds familiar.
Hmm.
And we're going to talk about that coming up on this Squadcast episode featuring Locked On Canucks and Locked On Kraken. But Justin, we got some housekeeping to take care of.
Absolutely. We got to talk with the fine folks at betonline.net, which is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering, information with live betting and up to the minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easy way to check in all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts.
Yep, and it
And
looks
we're
like
back.
BetOnline does have the odds in the Seattle Kraken's favor. Now, I
As
don't
they should
know.
be, as they should be, as they should be.
We'll see. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the Kraken now. So I'm
Let's
in the
let's
hot
talk
seat.
about the Kraken because I've voiced my frustrations about the Canucks enough. So the Kraken right now, not bad, around 500, 3-3-2. What are some of the biggest storylines that you've been had your eyes on? The biggest impressions of this year's team compared to last year's inaugural season?
Wow. So great questions. I think the first thing I'll start with is that the Seattle Kraken came into this season, our second ever season, with a focus on producing more offensively. So we went out and got Oliver Bjorkstrand. We got Andre Burakovsky.
Hmm.
Those elements and pieces, one by way of free agency, one by way of a trade, were really to boon the offense for the Seattle Kraken. The only change that we made on goaltending coming into the offseason, or coming out of the inaugural season, was with the goaltending coach. Now, that coach, Allen, is still with the organization, was brought back in a scouting perspective, but we brought in Steve Briere as a goaltending coach. Um, one of my five things, I know I talked about the five things that you mentioned that you need to know about Vancouver. One of the things I said is that goaltending we have to keep an eye on. We knew that we were going to be without Chris Drieger for a time. He suffered an injury in that gold medal game in the World Championships with Team Canada. And so Grubauer didn't have a great season last year, hence probably the goaltending change. We needed Grubauer to have a good year. As it stands coming into today's game, we're still focused on goaltending because Philip Grubauer is out. And they're saying now that he is month to month. So we'll see, or excuse me, Drieger is month to month. Grubauer is still day to day, but he's on injured reserve. So we called up Joey Decord, and in the offseason, one of the kind of what I call bridge contracts that we brought in, or someone that we have for a year or two, Martin Jones. Now, I personally have liked what Martin Jones brings. That being said, I think Philip Grubauer, I talked about him being very uncomfortable. He looked uncomfortable, just not in sync with his teammates last year. And I think a lot of what you said in the first segment, as far as the defense being, weak and putting a lot of pressure on Grubauer, that was a problem in season one. I don't think that we addressed defense. I'm with you there. We did not address defense enough, and so some of the frustration comes when we're able to get more goals. We get a lead, which is where the good part comes from what we did in the offseason. The bad part is that we've blown leads. We blew a
We
lead
know all too well
twice.
in Vancouver blown leads.
I mean, it's like, what in the crap? I mean, that game against Chicago, we're playing a team, Chicago, where most people have pretty much, just said they're tanking, getting ready, and here they come. First of all, I don't think anyone going in, especially not a team like the Seattle Kraken, should have that mentality, because if you looked at what Chicago did leading up to our game against them, they had multiple games where they were coming from behind and then were able to put up a multi-goal win over their opponent. And then the Seattle Kraken became a part of that statistic. So the consistency is still not there. The defensive breakdowns are huge. And, some people argue that the injury that Philip Grubauer, that he received was because of a defensive breakdown and, having people just crashing the crease and not being able to take care and protect your netminder from odd man rushes. So it's a little bit of up and down right now with the Seattle Kraken. And, there's a group of our mutuals that are in the podcast space and they call it Kraken crap, let's say. They use another term, but I'll say crap. And it's just like real Kraken crap is not only losing a lead, but giving up goals within seconds. I'm talking, Justin, 17 seconds, multiple times, sub 20 seconds. We're giving up not one, but two goals. That's a defensive breakdown if I ever. And so that's where the weakness comes. You can see my blood pressure is raising a little
Yeah, I was
because
getting kind of worried
defense.
there.
Yeah, I mean, because it's and you know what makes it more exhausting is that of course we only have a year history, but all of this talk about all of the improvements, and I've gone on the record multiple times saying we didn't do enough defensively, and that's exactly what is hurting us again this year. So that's really got to change if we're going to be successful.
Okay, now that we got all the frustrations out, let's talk about some exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of negativity. Let's talk about some two very prominent young players that, as a Canucks
Hmm.
fan, scare me a lot for the future. That's Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. What are some of the biggest things you've taken away from their games in this season? How do they look? Shane Wright's been a hot topic of discussion in Seattle, I've heard.
Oh
So
yeah.
give me the gauge on what people are thinking about Shane Wright and Matty Beniers, and just what the vibe is around those two guys.
Sure. I think it's night and day. And, I know you said, like, let's talk about some positive things. I think, to be honest, Shane Wright is still a sore subject for a lot of people. And that's why I asked you that question about coaching and where is the faith in the coaching staff right
Mm.
now, because Kraken Nation as a whole is very flabbergasted and, confused as to why Shane Wright isn't getting more minutes. When he is in the game, he was a healthy scratch with Ryan Donato. In our last game, we got that win. We secured a win, so that's a good thing. But Shane Wright was not on the active roster for that game. So there is a lot of frustration. I personally am of the opinion that Shane Wright hasn't done anything wrong, but he hasn't done what we see Matty Beniers doing. And so for that, with a team that I have a lot of questions if we even have a system in place, I'm a little reluctant to put someone who's 18 years old who still needs more development into Dave Haxtell and company's air quotes system. So that's how I feel on Shane Wright. And we've talked about that. We actually had our brand new colleague Hadi, who's going to be heading up Locked On NHL Prospects, talk about that. So you can head over to Locked On Kraken to hear more about Shane Wright. Now, Matty Beniers is someone that I've been watching for a while. I got to see him play at the Olympics when I was in China. I got to see him at the Frozen Four. He is the real deal. He is truly the future and the future of now for the Seattle Kraken. He had 2-game stretch where he didn't score any points, but other than that, he's been on the score sheet every single game. He has a high hockey IQ. He knows what to do. He's playing on that top line with Schwartz and Eberle, and I think that's a really good look. But so that's what you have in Shane Wright and Matty Beniers. But I think again, another positive is even without those two young guys, which I think have been a boon, you are seeing that the Seattle Kraken are getting unique scoring chances. Like we're top of the league when it comes to having multiple players be involved in scoring. And that's a really good thing because we were struggling. We were like driving the struggle bus when it came to production offensively last year. So those are some good things. Obviously, Shane Wright's still a little bit of a question mark. Matty Beniers is absolutely fantastic. And yes, although I am still upset we didn't do more defensively, we are seeing the offensive production when we're not making defensive errors that then negate them.
Look, I will say this. If you asked me a week ago if I was worried about I would have said this game would have been an easy victory for the Vancouver Canucks. Even a week ago, and the Canucks played very well against Seattle. Today, and I said before the season, I liked a lot what Seattle did. Getting guys like Burakovsky. I felt another year of improvement, another year of just building that foundation. This team was going to do something, and they're doing something right now. A lot better than the Vancouver Canucks. So I like that with guys like Matty Beniers and Shane Wright, who of course are young players, and it's going to be up and down in the early stages. But I think with the talent that both those guys have, I think you're going to see that the trajectory of this franchise just go higher and higher. And that worries me, but we can't worry about the future. I know after this last break, we're going to come back and talk about the game and kind of give some predictions. So let's do that. But Erica, what should people's second listen be?
That's it. You already know. So we are here. Of course, you should make Locked On Canucks and Locked On Kraken your first listen of the day. And we're so grateful for those of you who do that. But for your second listen of the day, we have Locked On Sports Today. And this is a show that you're going to hear about all the games that matter, the biggest stories in sports, and we're going to go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights from our Locked On family. And that's only insight that we at Locked On super fans and super insiders can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on the Odyssey app. It's available, of course, just like all of our shows on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, Justin, the time has come. We're going to do predictions for this game. Let's first start with the score, because I think there are a few things to factor in here. From the Seattle side of things, again, we have been seeing contribution pretty much spread out throughout the roster. That being said, we also are subject to defensive breakdowns, which also sounds like the Vancouver Canucks are subject to.
Oh, yes, we are.
So does this mean we're blowing it out the water, or is this in some ways going to cancel each other out and be a very tame, calm,
Well,
low-scoring game?
so the Canucks have been basically hitting the over on total goals pretty much every game. And whether that's they give up a bunch of goals, they score a bunch of goals, and they can't score enough. Last game, they hit the under. I think this game has the potential to be a low-scoring game. I kind of hope it's a low-scoring game because I need it to be a low-scoring game. Um, I think if you want me to give my final score prediction, 2-0 Vancouver.
Okay.
I think Thatcher Demko settles in and shuts out the Kraken. And I could be completely wrong. I probably will be completely wrong, but that's what my gut tells me, and I'm going to go with my gut. What
Go
says
with
you?
your gut. All right, 2-0 Vancouver. We're locking that score in. I am inclined to agree with you that I think it'll be a lower scoring game. The Seattle Kraken, I guess we're averaging about 3 goals a game. That's not math. That's literally just my eye test. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, I'd say that we're averaging about 3-4 goals a game. I do think that the Seattle Kraken sometimes, and this wasn't the case in our last win, but I think we can sometimes kind of play to the pace of our opponent, and sometimes the scoring, at least last season, could kind of falter if we're not, seeing the other team put up shots. That hasn't been the case this season, though. So I'm going to go 3-1 in favor of Seattle.
Okay, a little empty net goal at the end to ice it. Are you thinking?
Maybe something like that.
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
think I think this game is going to be tighter than certainly the Seattle Kraken fans want it to be, just given how Vancouver has performed. But that being said, I'm going to pull up another graphic. I mean, if we look at our Pacific Division rankings now, this came out before a lot of what Calgary did, but
Yeah,
we
I was
had
gonna say
Vancouver.
this is
This is
I hey, I'm not, I'm in all honesty, I totally missed this power rankings email. I didn't vote. So I don't really know if I should be complaining, but I remember I did part of my episode when I came on the Canucks. The Canucks are fairly judged there, but they could be third. Right
Yeah,
now, we're at the bottom of that power rankings right
at the
there. So
bottom, at the
we're at
bottom.
dead last, dead last. We're
So
not,
for
we're not.
those for those listening, we had in our rankings pre-season, post-draft, post-free agency, Edmonton on top, followed by the Flames, the Kings, the Canucks at 4, the Vegas Golden Knights at 5, the Ducks at 6, Seattle Kraken at 7, and San Jose Sharks at 8. That is not how the division is faring right now. That being said, it's still pretty early. So I think there's a lot of promise. I think it's the frustration you can obviously hear from you, Justin, is that it hasn't come together. But you know what? The Kraken crap, as I said before, would be that y'all will figure it out at CPA. And let's not forget that historically, we still have yet to win against Vancouver.
And let's hope that trend continues tonight because
That was obviously Justin speaking. For those listening to Locked On Kraken, don't put that on me. I did not
hey,
say
look,
that.
for all the people in Seattle, look, I was so happy when the Mariners beat the Blue Jays. I
I
was wearing
know.
my Mariners jersey. I was so happy when that happened. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Seahawks right now. I love Geno Smith. Continue to sleep on Geno Smith the rest of the NFL because he's going to keep on not writing back. Look, I'm a Seattle sports fan, just not a Kraken fan.
It's fair. It's fair. For those who are watching, make sure you follow Justin, process sports underscore, because you had some hilarious kind of like man on the street videos with Toronto
Yeah,
fans. That was
yeah.
amazing. And then like the chirping that happened after they got swept. I freaking loved it.
Yeah. No, hey, anytime I can represent a Pacific Northwest team and they take down Toronto, the evil empire that Toronto thinks they are, I love it.
I love that you said the evil empire that Toronto thinks they are. Like I didn't skip out on that subtle shade. Not so
No,
subtle.
absolutely not. I might live in Toronto, but Vancouver will always be home,
I love
and
it.
Seattle will always be close to my heart.
I love it. And we talked about that. Of course, this isn't our first squadcast. So if you want to listen to that, we talked all about that and your roots and what the expectations were. But so, all right, tonight we talked about our score. We're thinking it's going to be low scoring. I said 3-1. You said 2-0. Who do you think will be key performers for Vancouver to be able to win 2-0?
Thatcher Demko starts in net. He has to stand on his head. I said he needs to just steal a game for the Canucks. Just stand on his head, steal a game. Just take that temperature and just drop it a little bit. Take that
Mm,
monkey, that giant monkey, the gorilla, the weight, whatever you want to say, just off the Canucks back. We
mm,
have a win. There was no more zero in that one column, right? I think once that happens, you'll start seeing things progress. But I
mhm.
think once that pressure's off, that they have their first win, it'll be there. But I think Thatcher Demko is the critical key for tonight's game.
I love that. I think for me, I am assuming we're going to go with Martin Jones because, again, Philip Grubauer, we have as day to day. At the time of this recording, the teams, or at least the Seattle Kraken, hasn't hit the ice yet. So we don't have updates on who's practicing. Also, talking about practice, like the Seattle Kraken have been taking a lot of rest days. And I'm like, fam, for a team that has not even played 10 games, why do we need so much rest? Like, what is
That's the
going
new
on?
way in sports. Hey, you're not gonna,
Yeah, I
you
don't
guys,
know.
it's
Maybe I'm old school then. This is how you're saying
exactly. Hey, I think you should practice every day, but you know,
listen, until the lungs just like they need to open up their lungs. That's what I said. Anyway, I got off track
yeah,
there. So we don't know who's in the lineup. Of course, everyone's on Shane Wright watch. Is he going to be a healthy scratch? I honestly, and I hate to say this because Ryan Donato is my boy, but our fourth line with Morgan Geeky centering Sprong and Tanev, I'm really looking to see if that line can be productive. Brandon Tanev has been on an absolute tear with being able to create chances for his teammates. So there's a part of me that would love to see him pot one, just all that, as we coin over on Locked on Kraken, his orange cat energy. Like he's just like, a ball of energy all the time. But I think also Jared McCann and Andrei Burakovsky have been some of our most consistent scorers. But I will agree with you, whoever is in net, assuming that the defense for the Seattle Kraken going defense, or as in not defense, I do think that goaltending is going to be critical. I don't see this being the game where we see Joey Decord, at least not starting. I don't. I mean, I love Joey Daccord, I really do, but I'm not giving him. I'm not giving him the start. We need this win. So that's what I say. But all right, last thoughts or words as we close out this squadcast, Justin.
Um, Go Canucks. Hopefully they win. If they don't win, tomorrow's episode of Locked On Canucks will be again me pounding my head against the desk, wondering why. But hopefully I win tonight because I need some positivity about the Canucks. I really do.
All right. I mean, I do want positivity for you. I would be okay though, for my purposes, if it was delayed just one more night. And similarly, Locked On Kraken listeners and viewers, I told you I was going to come with my goat energy, my Sue Bird tee. Got it back
Love
on.
it. Love the super.
That's you gotta respect the goat. So we're bringing that Sue Bird energy into CPA, and you know what we always say: hold fast, stay true, and let's go Kraken. But Justin, this has been a lot of fun. Another squad cast between Locked On Canucks and Locked On Kraken. Whoever you are rooting for, because I know some people are a little divided, given that Seattle's the new kid on the block here. We just want you to have a good time. Either way, you're probably going to be a little bit frustrated after the game because, our teams, they've got a lot to work out, but we want some good hockey. Hopefully we'll see it. But Justin, thank you so much. Thank you, Locked On Canucks listeners, and we will see you on our respective shows and channels tomorrow.